some of these practices may work to your benefit some of the time when pulled over in your vehicle by police. Never say you know why you are being stopped. You don't know anything. Put your cell phone on the dashboard before the cop arrives at your window and record the conversation. Call someone. Call your voicemail. Use the voice memo feature. Be your own witness because police are trained to lie. Go with the obvious. Keep your hands in sight and no sudden movements. Hide your personal belongings because they can't search you unless you say so. Although it might sound casual, if a cop asks, is it okay if he searches your pockets, your reply should always be no. They ask because they can't do it without your consent. You can't be searched without your permission. If you can't be searched, the cops can't plant anything either. By law, you have the right to tell the police you do not consent to any searches. Remember, don't talk to police. All you should have for police is no, you cannot search me or my vehicle. Am I free to go? And I'll only speak with an attorney. Other than that, don't talk to police. You can't work out a deal with police. They are not on your side. They are not giving you a break. The grime reality is that people of color's interactions with police just don't happen to be so cordial and courteous. Still, try to not invite them to you. Give them no reason to pull you over. Find an uncle, aunt, boyfriend, or girlfriend and get the paperwork right on your car. Get that taillight fixed. Traffic stops don't always go so routine. Cops believe they have some authority over you. The basis of their interaction with you is to humiliate you. So, not only should people of color avoid and minimize their dealings with police, it serves non-whites' interest to begin to alter the systems that employ and empower such civil servants. Change the game. White people are afraid of people of color, so they support any police abuse, harassment, or brutality, even by silence. The reason white people are sometimes more likely to be courageously rude to you is because they know that if or when the police arrive, the cops will protect them. White people know that if anything goes to court, they are more likely to win versus a non-white. The entire justice system needs an overhaul, from the judges to the politics down to the cops. It is all a Western white system built on preserving corruption and injustice. In the long term, it needs to be changed. In the short term, people of color can create a shift in the abusive relations that they have with the cops simply by raising awareness at the unjust practices. Police brutality and abuse perpetuates as a result of a variety of factions. The freedom to do so. The way whites view non-whites, citizens unaware of their power, etc. Police were never set up to be fair and protective, but now they fall under the city's jurisdiction. They are supposed to serve the people and the communities in the cities that they are employed. Each city has a council. You can get involved. People of color can get their people involved. Once you have a presence in the city council, steps can be taken from there to change the power that the beat cops have. From making sure the cops that are in your community are actually from your community to severe time and punishment for police murders, harassment, and abuse. Ask an entertainer that you respect, singer, actor, rapper, to be on the city council for your neighborhood. Don't believe it can be done? The Terminator is the governor of California. That's how long this has been written. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Your favorite entertainer wields tremendous influence. They can amass the votes. They can force abusive police out of your neighborhoods. Don't view it as politics. View it as a means to fight the cops. If the entertainer angle is too extreme, select someone you trust. Don't have anyone? Find someone. Craft your representative. This is at the smallest level, because most individuals interested in politics or being a council person are only interested in being a mayor, senator, or president. The further along one ventures in that tangled web, the more corruptible they are. Corrupt officials don't help fight police abuse. This city council angle is but one method of dealing with police, but it's most important that people of color recognize that police are not their friends, allies, or protectors. From this standpoint, no matter the length of time, more solutions to dealing with police can be mapped out. Chapter 6, White People and Entertainment. Run the world. With dominance, entertainment affairs influence the globe. Ask anyone to name 5 politicians that have not been in the news in the last year. Now ask them to name their favorite singers, actors, or movies. You can find yourself trapped in a week-long conversation. It is important to realize that all of popular culture, news, books, magazines, music, TV, sports, and movies are controlled by whites. Jewish whites, to be exact. Again, they run every single branch of popular culture. They also control the representation of the talent and distribution of the content. One group of people controlling all the popular opinions creates a very natural conflict of interest for people of color. Ask yourself, when have white people ever had people of color's best interests in mind? When? The history of white people's relations with non-whites has been negative since the first time they arrived on everyone's shores. The records won't reflect them turning magically pleasant yesterday, or even today, or even tomorrow. Does that mean you hate them? No. You adapt. There was more than enough history available on Caucasians, and now is the time to adapt to their behavior patterns. Consider the following pipeline in one face of entertainment, film and TV. The channels a movie idea must pass through before it receives a green light for shooting travels from writer to agent, to production company, to network, and then onto a studio. The big 6 agencies, CAA, WMA, ICM, Endeavor, Paradigm, UTA, all are run by the same type of people, white Jewish people. The production companies and networks are all run by the same type of people, white Jewish people. The studios, Sony, Universal, Paramount, Fox, Warner Brothers, Disney, are all run by the same type of guys that run the agencies, production companies, and networks, white Jewish people. There's no diversity. Although product is marketed to every racial group, behind the scenes only one group of people are pulling the strings. There's no diversity. The same can be said about the distribution of information, the news, newspapers, etc. These industries are run by the same guys who run the TV and movie studios. They see the world one way. So, the news stories or TV shows and films that they run or green light will reflect the world through a Jewish lens. There's no diversity. Most people of color have little Jewish awareness because quite naturally all they are seeing is another white person. And this is all that really matters, not the labels, because at this point It is as simple as white people controlling the entertainment and information that people of color receive. This is a problem. At one point in time, white people thought they were the best basketball players because they were the only ones playing. This was before black people began to play. Right now, whites think they are the only ones qualified to control information and entertainment for everyone. They figure they can and should decide what's suitable for everyone else. When one group of people control the entertainment that is produced for anyone, then the product is going to be biased to that one group's views and opinions of what is acceptable for art and expression. Destroy their art. You may notice that most successful people of color in entertainment today are completely silent when it comes to any social issues. In the past, people of color in entertainment used their voices to help their people. But in order to play, you must be approved by whites. At different points in time, people of color controlled their own stories, expression, and arts. Time and time again, whites would infiltrate, destroy, and attempt to master these arts. Whenever a group of color encounters white people, whites begin a non-stop crusade to constantly cripple people of color by crippling their artistic expression. Take America, for instance. Examine black art through the drum, music. The drum is essential to all people of color, from the lion dance in China to the step show at a black university. Systematically, whites have begun to weaken blacks through the destruction of black music in America. Just as McDonald's targets children to ensure lifelong customers, Caucasians play for keeps for the long term. Through their control of media and media outlets, they can handpick black entertainers. So as they replace the voices that spoke of pride and cultural awareness over soulful instrumentation with newer voices that speak on murder and blatant materialism over computer noise, then they will, in effect, begin to change the mindset of black people. Whites will use black entertainers to erode cultural pride, awareness, and social consciousness in blacks. The irony of black entertainers or glam rappers boasting about their so-called riches is that being black or being a person with color is synonymous with poverty. You are as your people are. In other words, each black person is a representative of their people. So, no matter how many diamonds a black entertainer may have on, when that entertainer's people are poor, the entertainer is poor. Mass poverty is what the world sees when black entertainers elect to flaunt or make songs about white people's wealth, which is not true wealth. Real wealth is land and the means to protect your land. It's interesting to note that centuries ago, the transatlantic slave trade was aided at certain points by blacks actually selling other blacks. Just as now, black entertainers continue to align with whites to sell poisonous entertainment to their own people. Entertainers don't realize that a hypothetical spot in the big house when your people are slaves still makes the entertainer a slave. Nothing that white people give non-whites is helpful. Whether it's a check cashing, pawn shops, liquor stores, or soulless entertainment personalities, people of color should reject it all. White people's media outlets and entertainment they approve serves to show blacks that they are on an auction block or sorts. This deterioration and lack of respect for black music outlines the design for destroying the people through their art. As whites push their version of what is acceptable entertainment to blacks, they will claim the true essence of black people's ethnic art and expression for themselves. In recent times, the media indicates that the female soul singers are white women hailing from England. They even crowned one of these singers the new queen of soul. It is no coincidence that they are now reporting that a white guy is the king of rap music. They destroy the people by destroying their culture. Then they resurrect it with their own faces and images, and suddenly it's cool again. All the while, Caucasians will promote and endorse black entertainment that is subpar. You will notice that whites love to hear the most negative and degrading songs from blacks. Songs that perpetuate the stereotypes that Caucasians created. As the people's art and music die, so will the people. For they will lose their connection with themselves as they are severed from their own culture and history. When the destruction of the art process begins to take shape without any group of non-whites, they should firmly halt the involvement of white people in their arts and affairs. Otherwise, whites will destroy and steal your art, then replace you with themselves to bolster their image in the world view. Image is everything. White people like to see white people. They like whites. This is why their image is plastered everywhere with zero to little diversity. On billboards, posters, advertisements, etc. This is why there are not as many non-white stories in the entertainment that they control and view. They are obsessed with convincing the world that they are great. White people flood the media with an onslaught of images of themselves as happy, in charge, strong, fair, and just, while depicting non-whites as angry, bubbling, and foolish. Caucasians create larger-than-life white superheroes and ultra stylized action and glamour icons. These super images serve to perpetuate white worship and to cripple non-whites' esteem and compensate for the true inaccuracies that Caucasians suffer from. The more someone focuses on telling you that you are superior, the higher the probability, that they are not. Let me read that again. The more someone focuses on telling you that they are superior, the higher the probability that they are not. If the white is might message were true, then it wouldn't need a constant, lifelong advertising campaign or reminder. It would be self-evident. It's like a hyena scrambling around the jungle proclaiming to be king. The lion would never do that. The world knows its greatness. At the decision-making level, white marketing and media executives will comment, well, this is what the people want to see. So, this indicates that in addition to the whites that control the information, the general white public also does not care for diversity. People of color must recognize and accept this reality. Why is it important for whites to make it appear that people of color are always in conflict, fighting amongst each other, and can only be saved, rescued, or civilized by whites? What are the long-term effects of always portraying darker people as aggressive and enraged while whites are smiling? As far as film and TV, if you see these images repeatedly, especially the more blatant ones, it will take a toll on your sense of self and your people. If you peel back the layers in entertainment and media, you will notice that they portray the darker people as combative warrior types. What this does is plant a seed in non-white people that makes them think of themselves as a threat to society, a problem, not powerful but chaotic. Especially sports figures. They are always portrayed as mindless, animalistic buttes. Photographs are always printed with them yelling, never smiling. To turn the tables on this bigotry, people of color should segregate themselves completely in sports. For instance, in football, what if one team had all white running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks, offensive and defensive linemen? How would whites like it if all the white players played on one team and all the black players played on another? Same for basketball and other sports. How would superiority be viewed then? A small change like this would cause the media to show more respect to the non-white athletes. At the present, whites in power will make themselves and their people appear favored at all costs. In addition, when people of color look bad, whites people shine. In white societies that are ruled by sport and entertainment, the destruction, mockery, and ridicule of dominance, non-white figures is of the utmost importance. The Caucasian philosophy sees all other cultures separate, disconnected, and inferior to them. To strengthen and validate that thinking, people of color are rarely given chances to show intelligence in white-run entertainment. Any efforts or attempts are stifled. Asking white people to view non-white people in a positive way is a mute point. As people of color begin to cease asking whites to depict them respectfully, they will begin to entertain themselves. Since the popular music that non-whites hear and view are all controlled by Caucasians, trustworthy people of color must create and run new talent agencies, production companies, music distributors, networks, and studios that are separate and free from white control or influence. Though the newly established media outlets, useful, honest information, as well as empowering images of people of color must be programmed. Negative images and perception can become a dangerous reality. It is mandatory that non-whites seize control of the depiction of their likenesses. Being entertained and informed by those who have done you harm is detrimental to yourself and race. Whites will also uphold the modern portrayed image of themselves and expect stereotypes from non-whites in day-to-day encounters. Chapter 7. White and non-white gender relations. Men or women of color will find their interactions with whites of the opposite sex more tense, hostile, and confrontational. There are many varied reasons why and several methods of adapting favorably in these situations. Damsel in distress. Damsel in distress. In popular white stories, films, and TV shows, you may count one token male of color amongst the cast of white males. The non-white male may sometimes be paired with a white female, or the white female character may also play the role of consoling the male of color when the white males mistreat him. Other times, ideas like these convey the message that men of color are either equal to or lesser than a white woman. For white women, this portrayal reinforces existing racist outlooks, carrying over into their day-to-day interactions. White women will engage non-white males of color according to the stereotype or ideal that whites want to reduce them to. For instance, Latinos, workers, blacks, dumb sex machines, Asian and East Indians, cute, cuddly pets. It's up to the men to destroy these and many other negative perceptions of their people and culture. Whether the men of color detect the subtle disrespect or present themselves in an intelligent manner, white women will always be more likely to be more confrontational with them as opposed to a woman of color. This is because white females know tension or conflict won't resolve with a fight with a man of color. They will antagonize the non-white man, but not the woman. The white woman is quicker to engage or amplify an issue with a non-white male because they know a man shouldn't hit or fight her. Also, conflict with the non-white male affords the white woman an opportunity to cry out to the white male for help. The white woman loves to falsify and exaggerate her danger in order to be rescued. And the white male cannot wait to come running. He knows how perverted his history is, and he would hate for white women to endure the same crimes that he committed against women of color. Don't feed a white woman ego. Crush it. If you pass one on the street, hold your nose. Pretend you smell something foul. Be creative. If men of color pursue white women, worshiping them like the larger-than-life images that are projected, this will lead to further complications and lack of respect amongst the races. If anything, let her pursue you. But to save aggravation, men of color would fare better eliminating necessary dealings with them. When dealing with a feisty white woman, black and Latino men have the option of alerting a woman from their respective cultures to deal with the white woman directly. White women will never assault a black or Latino woman with a verbal barrage the way they would a man of color. They know a few disrespectful exchanges will escalate into a fist fight. Asian and East Indian men, however, must be more firm when encountering a confrontational white woman. White women don't fear Asian and East Indian women the same way that they fear black and Latino women. So it's more beneficial for these males of color to never present themselves in a docile way when interacting with white females. To catch a predator, just as white women are prone to be more aggressive with males of color, the courage of white males will surge when interacting with non-white women. Gestures, words, and actions that they would never use with a non-white man become the norm when dealing with women of color. If a white male interacts with a woman of color in the absence of a non-white male, the Caucasian male is liable to try to intimidate or insult the non-white female. In other circumstances, he will always overstep his boundaries and try to steer a conversation in a sexual direction. When women of color are in public without a male of color, and they experience or sense disrespect from a white male, they should try to spot a male of their color and ask a random question. Once the white man notes the presence of another male of color, he will scatter or interact with a non-white female more respectfully. When dealing with white males, women of color should command the utmost respect at all times. Any disrespect allowed will be exploited to no end. Whites won't stop themselves. You have to. If women of color find themselves violated or disrespected by a white male, and there are no men of color around, come back with one. Always let the men of color catch the predator. Non-whites often find themselves interacting with nice, older, white men. White men who in old age suddenly want to be polite and cordial. People of color should never forget that what they are seeing when they come across an old white person is a lifetime of racism. How many slurs do you think he has uttered in his life? Remember, no race of men on the planet has a more perverse past filled with the rape of women from other cultures than white males. In the Americas, Latinos from Mexico and Puerto Rico, and elsewhere, and everywhere else that white men arrived were raped. The modern descendants stand as evidence that the entire race was tainted by whites. The same can be said for the black women who arrived here as slaves. Modern blacks in America today all show traces of slave owners' predatory sexual violations. Very few blacks in America retain 100% African features. To this day, some women of color can never relax around a white male. Considering the white male's past, this comes as no surprise. It's beneficial to remember that whites will never tell you their history or offer you anything allowing you to truly help yourself. Chapter 8, the mask. Racism at its core is an issue that has not been fully and honestly examined or discussed. Therefore, it is impossible for it to go away. Whites won't expose anything. Everything in this book, white people already know, but they will pretend not to. Well aware, white people know that what they are capable of. They know the innate hatred that resides in them. Hatred that's been stoked for millennia from living in the cold and running from disease. They know their makeup. They have no faith in themselves because they know what they are comprised of. It is the people of color who sometimes need convincing. In some cases, they have more faith in whites than whites have in themselves. Whites will not break this faith and share the truth about their nature. Consider this. Skin bleaching is at an all-time high around the globe. Do not wait for whites to make an attempt at stopping the growth of the worship white seeds that they planted. They will not. White people are all too mindful of their crimes and the negative effect that their contact has had on non-whites. They will don a disguise of friendship and well wishes, but will never share with people of color the true nature of their actions. Since whites arm themselves with information as their primary weapon, that means on average, some whites know more about people of color's history than people of color actually do. Whites know how racist they are, and they know exactly what their people did to the world. Remember that whites went so far as to beat white love and worship into entire cultures. Beaten, as in by aggression, violent force. Whites won't drop their mask and tell you this, and they won't help you to drop the habit of adoring them and hating yourself. It's up to people of color to share the stories with their youth and babies so that they will never make the mistake of trusting whites again. Caucasians know the full extent of the damage that people have inflicted on the world, even when they pretend not to understand the conditions non-whites currently live in. There would be no plight for some people of color had they never came in contact with whites in the first place. Be cautious of white people pretending to clean up a mess they created only so they can be lauded as saviors. This does not mean that they are helping you. Direct contact with them and their systems and customs has done more harm than good for people of color. Their politics, banking, interest, credit, and school system have not fared well for non-whites. Expect whites to pretend not to know this and to adopt an indifferent and naive position when asked directly. Suddenly, they will seem to not know history. White people, BS, Dakota. You know what BS stands for. As people of color begin to take note of the dishonest nature of whites, they will begin to employ a natural BS decoder to translate what Caucasians say and do. A few examples. White says, let the past go. Decoded, let us do what we want and shut up. Whites say, thank you for your help. Decoded. Screw you, you're still a slave. Whites say, read, a racist outburst, I lost the control. Decoded. I let the mask slip off and lost my disguise. Whites say, the indigenous natives are savage. Decoded. I'll excuse you of being what I am. Whites know their nature and their deeds. People of color should not wait until white people experience a racist meltdown to begin accepting them for what they are. Let it slip. Encourage white people to let the mask slip all the way off. Stop acting surprised. Asking whites not to be racist, bigots, puts a tremendous amount of pressure on them. Don't force their hands. Let them be themselves. Try to see their true skin. Let them make little racist comments. Anticipate this and much worse. Anticipate this and much worse. And when they slip up, just nod and make a mental note to yourself. Don't push to ban their expression. Let them march. Let them assemble. Then observe them. Honesty is the best policy. It's important to let whites be themselves, just as non-whites must be true to their culture. Be honest with white people and force them to show you their real colors. Non-whites need to see Caucasians in their purest forms so they can realize what they are up against. Let the mask slip all the way off. Let them reveal themselves. Remember that whites will kill babies and children to reach their enemies, and then accuse their enemies of using the children as a shield. So which is worse? Using the child as a shield or shooting and murdering one? Injustice at the hands of whites knows no bounds. It does not matter if you are an adult, child, rich or poor. Know this and see Caucasians without the mask of innocence. People of color must know and readily identify those who have always done their people harm. And they must not forget, it doesn't matter if whites allow you to get a job with them, or if they give you a record deal, or put your favorite actor in one of their movies, or if they give you a $300 stimulus check. It does not change their nature. People of color will begin to reevaluate the way they interact with white people as they realize that it's the whites against the rest of the world, against all of the non-white people, the animals, the elements, earth, air, and water. Whites have polluted them all. Up to this point, the method with which people of color have dealt with whites has not worked out for them. Non-white people must be wise to let the mask slip all the way off of whites so that the threat and danger that Caucasians pose can be clearly assessed. Chapter 9, the trap. People of color should never stop demanding respect and justice. To this day, people in Hawaii are still protesting to win back their independence and combat white imperialism. However, dealing with white people is rarely a straightforward affair. Caucasians set complex traps, and like the many treaties they have broken, their customs and ways are laden with deception. Be mindful and leery of the following deceptive sayings and practices. We're all a little bit racist. It starts off like this. A white person will do or say something racially insensitive or offensive. A person of color may be hesitant or too shocked to address the offense. It's important to follow one's instincts. If you feel that it's racism, then it usually is. So once you caught a white person on the racist act, they try to get you to prove it or to clearly articulate it just to see if you fully picked up on it. Then they will joke, we're all a little bit racist, and try to coerce you into poking fun at another culture's differences. First things first, all people cannot be racist. In order to be racist, your race must have a position of power and control throughout the world. Only whites fit this description. Second, the idea of racism has always been scarce to benefit the white-like or like people. It has never been about darker people oppressing the light or white people. People of color just don't have that same history as whites. Once Caucasians left Western Europe, the world began negative change for all people of color. Third, a person of color should never follow whites and join them with racist jokes. If you are not white and your people have come in contact with Caucasians, you have experienced the same injustice. Racist jokes aimed at people of color are about as tasteful as your mother. Jokes when someone's mother has recently died. There is nothing funny. Whites want to drag you into being barbaric by making you think your people are just as blameless as theirs. This is clearly not the case. Autopilot. People of color should be careful if they remove themselves from direct contact with whites only to continue to implement Caucasian practices. Falling into this trap can have the same effects as dealing with whites firsthand. Occasionally, whites will throw a docile person of color at the head of an organization or business where the employees are mostly white. This does not mean the company is run by a person of color. White people can invade and occupy your country, leave, yet still remain there in practice. When people of color evict Caucasians from their lands, it's equally important that they eliminate the systems, businesses, and practices of whites. Because the trap is the effects of what whites leave behind. You can endure white people's hell without them being around. The poverty, self-hate, tension, conflict, despair, stress over money. These thought processes that may have been initially inflicted upon non-whites to cripple them can continue to run indefinitely without whites at the wheel. Make some money. Whites place high importance on money because they are the only ones who have it. It gives them an unfair advantage. Unfortunately, however, the primary language in the world is not English or Mandarin, but money. If white people have all the money, how are you ever going to catch them? It's a losing battle. They made money more important than anything. They created that paradigm. So slowly try to free yourself from pursuing their money. Real wealth is not money. However, real wealth is land, not their money. If financial systems crash and you had several bank accounts with large sums of money in them, what good does that do you? But what if you own several farms? That's real wealth. When people of color think they cannot survive without whites' money and monetary systems, then they have fallen into one of the greatest traps. Non-whites should not let financial woes terrorize them into accepting something even worse than slavery.